There's going to be quite a few things throughout the process that I'm going to show that I wish I had known when I first started using SketchUp. So I have a project coming up where I'm going to build a TV cabinet for a friend of mine. She found one that she likes online, but it's not the right size. So I'm going to go ahead and design one in SketchUp that is the right size. And I just thought it would be interesting to show you the process. I will be building this. I'll make a video about that as well. But this is how I start every project. I'm going to go ahead and call out some tips and tricks throughout the process. I like to start off with a solid shape, the same outer dimensions as my finished piece. Then I will go in and begin to build inside of that shape. I always group my geometry to make sure things don't stick together, and I think of each piece of wood as its own group. And then of course, if you're making multiples of something, you can make it a component. Sometimes looking inside of objects is helpful, so if you press K, then it will show you the back edges, and then to get out of it, just press K again. It is a little sped up. It's twice as fast, and that is really only because I didn't want the video to be super long, but what I'm hoping is that you can see everything that's going on. Try to make it as clear as possible. By the way, this is SketchUp 2017. I normally use the Pro version, but I like to keep this old version on hand just in case my subscription runs out and I don't feel like paying for it. Although the same tips do apply for the newer versions, and I would imagine the older versions as well. It's helpful to use inference points like I'm doing here with the center of this circle. Sometimes it takes a second to find the center point on a circle, but I just like to hover around the edge and then go back into the center, and usually it'll automatically go right to that point. I tend to just bring reference photos directly into my model. That way I can look at them constantly while I'm working and make changes if needed, and then just erase them when I'm done. A second monitor would be really useful for this, but I don't have one currently, so anything that I need to do, I have to click in and out of the program, and it just makes a lot more sense to just bring the images directly in and work off of them from there. The overall depth of my cabinet can't be greater than 15 inches, so I push the face back so that I can add doors. This is why I like to start with a simple block. You can push your shapes inward, and then you don't have to do any additional measuring. I'm adding a piece to either side and then typing /3, and then before I click on anything else, I switched it to /4, and then I equally divided it by 4 parts. I thought the legs should be a bit longer. If you're in push-pull, do the first one, and then double click on all the rest, and it will automatically change them all to the same measurement. My cabinet needs to be exactly 37.5 inches tall. I made the feet longer, so now I need to lower the top and the sides by 2 inches. I use this trick to divide spaces evenly constantly. Saves a lot of time. Starting to work on the drawers now. I know my drawer slides will be 1/2 inch wide, so I'm moving in on the sides and the back. You'll see me do this over and over, just creating a box to the overall dimensions and then working inside of it. I like to move objects out into the open where they're easier to see. I tend to move them in increments that I will easily remember, like 18 inches, 2 feet, 4 feet, 8 feet, things like that. And then when I'm done working on it, I remember what I typed and I can just type it in the opposite direction and send it right back where it was. I'm going to keep these drawers simple. They'll be 1/2 inch plywood, glued and nailed, and then just a dado to hold the bottom. So obviously everyone works differently, but I thought it would be interesting to outline my process. I work mostly as a carpenter and woodworker these days, but my background is in design and sculpture. A simple trick to flip objects is to scale it to -1. And you'll want to grab the middle point from whichever side you're trying to flip to the opposite. It's good practice to make components of any object that needs multiples. This is something I don't always remember to do, like for instance with the legs earlier. I kind of like the look of a bit of an overhang, and I'm going to make sliding doors, so I'll need some thickness on the outside for strength. I'm only planning on 2 doors, but I want the doors to be able to slide all the way across. Generally, if I don't know if I have a job yet, I do a very basic model just to show them, just to make sure we're on the same page. But if I do know I have the job, I build my models in a way that I know I'm going to actually build them physically. I was confident that I would be building this piece, so I am detailing as I go. When you're modeling like this, it does help to have some building experience, so you know how to put the pieces together. If I were building this out of hardwood, I would be thinking about wood movement, joinery, things like that. I'll be making a video soon about the actual build. We're going to be building it out of 3/4 walnut plywood with walnut edge banding and then some actual walnut hardwood as well. I realized I needed to make my drawers a bit smaller. It's really easy to revise these drawers because I group the individual parts. I also made the entire drawer a component, so whatever I change will automatically change all the rest of them. Now, I used SketchUp for quite a while before I learned some of these tips. I never took a formal class. I've since watched more formal tutorials. I do a little bit of sketching, but I like to see things three-dimensionally from the get-go. This might seem a bit of a roundabout way to lay out drawer fronts, but I just wanted to be sure that they'd be the same size and have the same clearance on all sides. So by the way, if somebody comes to me with photos of a piece that they want exactly replicated, I'm not really interested in projects like that. People usually have this idea that if they find something online that they think is too expensive, they bring it to you, you'll make it for them, it'll be cheaper. It usually won't be. It will probably be more expensive. Most of the time, those pieces are made in factories, assembly line kind of style. That's obviously not the situation for most, small woodworkers. So in those situations, I just encourage them to buy the original piece that they saw. Now, if there's something about the piece that they don't like, or if it's not the right dimension, then of course I'm happy to help. But just copying off of somebody else's work is not really what I want to do. And in fact, on this piece, I made quite a few changes. It looks a lot like the original piece in some ways, but not everything is the same. I started to draw the doors the same as my reference photo, but I didn't like the look of the wide sides. I imagined that this was for strength on the original cabinet. Now, in this version, I drew the stiles going the full vertical length, but I later realized that I should probably have the rails going the full horizontal length because these will be sliding. I don't end up changing that here in this version, but I do change it later. There you have it, just a simple cabinet build. Colors and textures are fairly limited on here, so just seeing what color looks best, tried a few, went back to that sort of lighter brown. I ended up modeling a 6 and a 6.5 foot version as well, because it turned out 7 foot was probably going to be a little bit too big for the space. I'm super curious to hear what your process is, and let me know what you think about this project. Thanks for watching.